Yes. Sorry, Sam. Yeah.
I also have 2 points. I feel I have to, since Cam started.
Can you address the second one first?
Certainly.
It's an analogy.
No, which order they were before. I mean, I can throw your in. One of the points was that as someone who's involved with the design process on games, the most important thing to me is figuring out that my game sucks as early as possible. Because everything you try to do, maybe it's just me, I'm just not a very good game designer, but things tend to not be as much fun as you think. So in terms of making great games, the best way of doing that is finding that out early enough to fix them. Something like the Wii, we've been able to get code playable very, very quickly indeed, because they're building on a very familiar, very well understood platform that's enabled me to figure out how bad my game was in time to make it less bad, which ultimately, if we continue in that direction, might make for great games in the future. The other point I had to make was that the PS3 and Xbox 360 seem to require an enormous amount of effort, brain power, manpower, person power, on making things look fancy. And the emphasis is not being equally spread. The kind of, I don't understand anything at all about processor architecture, but as I've had it explained to me, it seems that it enables certain kinds of things to be done very efficiently and very well. Things like making stuff look good. But in terms of creating different play experiences through AI type of programming, the kind of game code that actually makes your game work, it actually makes that a more painful, more difficult process, or at least no easier. So that what we're ending up with is very lopsided games that are quite old-fashioned games at their core, rendered to increasingly deep levels of detail, rather than genuinely new experiences that you can prototype and test and build. So processing power and ease of development, I think, in terms of processing power, obviously there is a little more grunt in both those other machines, but in terms of leading towards great games, I'm very surprised that's the case.
Great games are a design thing. I mean, the ease of programming is nice, but it comes down to allowing you to do the design of the game that you want, and not to be inhibited by the limitations of the hardware as well. You want to have a game with 4,000 chipmunks picking up stones fighting 6 large gorillas, then you can do that. Whereas on the Wii, you're going to have maybe 6 chipmunks and 1 gorilla, because you just don't have that power. It allows you to go a little bit further. You can push it a little bit further. Sure, there is a propensity to lean towards the shiny, Vaseline smeared turds.
Well, that's the expectation too. I mean, if you're making a game on the Wii, the fact of the matter is that the Wii is, I think, a lot more powerful than it's given credit for in public perception. But because
it's 2 tiny units.
Well, let's say, like in the worst case, it's slightly better than the previous generation of console hardware. The expectation hasn't even been to compare Wii games visually to good late generation Xbox One games or GameCube games. The expectation seems to be that whatever works, whatever gets it done, is alright. So the focus isn't on that. Whereas you have to put so much effort and so much work into getting a PS3 or a 360 game to look good enough for it to be acceptable to that audience, that it drains an enormous amount of resources away. And if you decide you want to make a big design change, or you want to steer in a different direction mid-project, that becomes a very expensive and very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I actually think the 360 has kind of the best of both worlds. I mean, it is very easy to develop on 360, but on the other hand, it has the processing power to make things look pretty. So,
with this ease, of programming argument, how important is the support that the various console manufacturers give you? Should that come into play in this argument at all, or should it be up to developers to make the best possible games using their own expertise?
So you go.
Support helps. They can provide you with tools to get you, to the next level. And I think that, I haven't done any development on the Wii because, it's not really a next-gen console. But both Microsoft and Sony are providing, pretty good support at the moment. Hey guys.
They have to.
Yeah,
I think it's actually more important now. In the previous generation, the PS2 was such a clear winner, and it did have, I think, the best games of the previous generation. And Sony, with all due respect to Sony people here, let's say the Sony people who aren't here had a particular attitude, which was, we're Sony and we make the PS2, and if you don't like our support, you can get fucked. With all due respect to the Sony people. But now that's all changed, and that there isn't kind of a clear winner. So I think the support.
There isn't a clear winner.
Of the current generation of platforms, yeah. Right.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, what if you can
I should have brought some stats.
It's not about sales, guys.
Danny.
But anyway, I think the support is very, very good now. I'm enjoying it very much. In conclusion.
Again, support doesn't necessarily make a great game. Some of the great games out there. Do you remember the Sega Saturn? And that was not a lot of fun to code for, apparently. But there were some great games released for it. Raiden Silvergun was awesome. But it's a great game, and it was on a console that sold, 5 or 6 units. You bought one, did you?
Cameron and David, what do you think of Tony's argument about the lifespan of a console, that the games continually get better over the lifespan of the console? I mean, if we look at PS2 today, we're not exactly seeing a whole raft of new titles coming out that are really pushing the hardware to its limits. We're seeing Buzz and SingStar.
I think Sony has actually been reasonably good about keeping the lifespan of its consoles long, but it does fall into that pattern of having a few years of steady ramp up where things are improving, and then leapfrogging to the next thing, and that kind of becomes a hand-me-down console. It's a really strong business model, but it doesn't foster the development of great games because their audience moves on. It kind of remains to be seen with the Wii what Nintendo's plans are. I don't want to sort of say that's going to be around for the next 10 years or the next 2. I mean, it's very difficult to say, but I think much more of the potential of the Wii in terms of its technical ability is accessible early on. So really it's up to design challenges to push that forward, which I think can happen much more quickly than it can happen on the PS3 and 360, where it seems to be constrained by technical difficulties.
I don't think there's any doubt that if it's hard to program for, then you'll get better games later. But you could just have the better games sooner, and then have more better games later.
On that point, the Xbox 360 has been out for a bit longer than the PS3, and so if you look at the curve, this is a graph, guys. The 360's you've got quite a good quality fairly early on because it's fairly simple. It has to be for Xbox programmers. And the PS3 is, it's confused people for a little while, but the smart people have really taken to it, and now we're actually caught up. And like Call of Duty 4 and Dynasty Warriors 5 are at the same quality. You can't distinguish between the two. Now, okay, this is your Xbox curve. This is your PS3 curve. The next 12 months, we're going to see a leapfrog above what the 360 can provide. Like Cam was saying, the games will get 30% better on the 360. They'll get a lot better on the PS3. There's a lot more we can learn about. There's a lot more you can do with it. And over the lifespan of the PS3, the same way we did with the PS2, that was awful to program for at the start. But over the various lifespan, we were doing some incredible things with that, just a couple of years ago. And the same things happen with the PS3. Sony produces consoles, they make hardware. That's what they do well. They produce consoles that don't die after 12 months. And not going to be shut down after 5 years. They're actually going to be around for 7 to 10 years. So people are going to have the time to perfect it and to produce games that are great. The time to reiterate on the rule of 3.
Is that what you're calling it?
I'm calling it the rule of 3. Turn units and the rule of 3, guys. Take it.
Regarding the hardware, Microsoft famously championed the value of the hard drive to improve game performance last generation, and then this generation has made it optional. Nintendo aren't interested in a hard drive for the Wii at all. PlayStation 3, it's now commonplace, mandatory. What is the value of a hard drive in delivering the best possible next-gen games? Is there any value?
Hard drive does 3 wonderful things for you. It drives up the price of your console. It allows developers to release broken and unfinished games. It is also a gateway to wallet rape. Charging for additional bits of games that you should have had in the first place. I don't think it's... Microsoft has clearly decided to use the hard drive only for those features, because by making it optional means they really can't use it to genuinely benefit any of the games that come out for that platform. Sony having, on the other hand, made a commitment to it, but I'm still not sure I've seen any evidence of a game that's actually better or with the hard drive. It would not have been possible without it. It doesn't seem worth limiting your user base by upping your cost of entry that much.
I reckon it depends as well on whether we're talking about just the best games. Like, I don't think there's any doubt that you could make the world's best game, but it wouldn't